Hello. If you know that one of your relationships is hurting you and it is hurting you deeply, but living still feels almost impossible, your brain might be caught in something called trauma bond. And once you understand how this works in your brain and in your nervous system, things that once felt confusing will begin to make sense. You will realize something very, very important. And it is not about weakness, it is about biology. My name is Ariadna Soriano. I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida, and I work with traumas, emotional abuse, and recovery from trauma bonds. If you would like to explore working together, I offer a free 15 minutes consultation, and the link is in the description below. And if this video helps you to understand something important today, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. So in that way, you help other people to reach out this information who may need it. Here we talk about psychology, trauma recovery, and how to deal with life one step at a time, because we all know we cannot stop the waves, but certainly we could learn how to surf them. And before we finish today, I'm going to explain the pattern that keeps many people trapped in these relationships for years. I call them situationships. They are not relationships. And once you understand how this works in your brain and in your nervous system, many things that once felt confusing will begin to make sense for you. You'll realize something very important. And this is no weakness. This is just biology. And before we finish here today, I'm going to explain the pattern that keeps many people trapped in these relationships, even when they clearly see that these situationships keep them hurting. If you feel like literally you are living inside an emotional roller coaster, one day you feel loved and hopeful and respected. The next day you feel confused, anxious, rejected, criticized, invisible, but somehow you still feel like you can't leave. What you might be experiencing is the trauma bond. A trauma bond happens when someone becomes emotionally attached to a person who repeatedly causes pain, confusion, insecurity, or instability. But at the same time, this individual occasionally also provides moments of affection, attention, or relief. So the relationship or the situationship becomes a cycle. Pain, fear, relief, hope. And then the cycle reinforces and begins again and again. Over the time, our nervous system begins to confuse intensity with love. But intensity, it is not the same as safety, and it is not the same as a healthy love. Now, how our brains gets trapped in this cycle. And this is another way to understand the trauma bond. Another way to understand the trauma bond is through something psychologists called intermittent reinforcement. This is actually the same mechanism used in gambling. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But because of the reward is unpredictable, the brain becomes even more attached to that cycle. And in emotionally unstable relationships, affection can become very intermittent. Long periods of tension followed by small moments of relief, crumbles. Those moments of relief become extremely powerful to the nervous system. So many people that I work with, they describe these experiences like this. For instance, several days of the week, that person may criticize you, ignore you, distance themselves emotionally, make you feel like you are never enough, and just when you start to emotionally pull away, Suddenly they become kind again. They apologize. They even promise to change. They even say everything you were hoping to hear. And in that moment, you feel relief. And that relief strengthens the bond. What bond? The trauma bond. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed this pattern in your own relationship? The tension, the confusion, the criticism, the bullying, the putting downs, the belittling, and all of a sudden, then the relief. If you have or are experiencing this in your actual relationship, oh, you are not alone. Many people go through this dynamic before they even understand what it is. In a relationship where narcissistic traits are present, this cycle often follows. This is very characteristic of a narcissistic relationship pattern. In relationships where narcissistic traits are present, the cycle often follows a very recognizable pattern. First comes the idealization stage. There, you are made to feel special, chosen, unique. The person appears extremely charismatic. Some people describe this dynamic of people with a lot of narcissistic traits, like very bright outside of the household and very, very dark inside. Now, I'm going to give you some practical steps. If you're going through this right now, start small. Healing does not require huge changes all at once. 10 minutes of silence, a walk without your phone, deep breathing before sleep. These small actions teach your nervous system something new, that you can exist without chaos, without turbulence, without emotional roller coaster, in peace. Here, there is a question that you could ask yourself every day, and not to solve everything, but just to care about yourself today. What do I need today to feel a little more at peace? Now, if you want to understand better the relationship from narcissistic abuse and BPD, or if you're interested in understanding emotional patterns, healing from difficult relationships, and building a more juicy and stable life, please consider subscribing to this channel. Here we talk about trauma recovery and how to deal with life one step at a time. And then when you feel like you finally might leave, the affection returns. A message, a cute message, an apology, a moment of kindness. Suddenly your body starts feeling another bout of relief. This one is the dopamine component of this equation. And that relief is exactly what strengthens the trauma bond. Because it's in that moment, your brain releases dopamine. And dopamine is the same neurotransmitter that is involved in addictive processes. So, when people say to you, "Why didn't you leave?" they often do not understand something very important. This is not simply about willpower. This is science. This is neurobiology. Your brain did not learn safety during the amount of time that you were subjected to the abuse. Your brain learned survival. So, when relief appears after emotional pains, our nervous system interprets like, oh, relief is love. But healthy love is not chaos. Healthy love is peace, is calm, is stability, respect, sanity, safety. Now, why living these situationships feel so similar, like the withdrawal symptoms that we experience when we are intoxicating from a drug? Well, again, here's the trauma brain, and here is the dopamine again doing its work. We're talking about a brain that is traumatized, And that is the reason why living these relationships, situationships, feel very, very similar to withdrawal symptoms. We may feel anxiety, emptiness, confusion, fear, guilt. Oh my God, guilt, that is a huge one. Not only because we lose a person in our life, but because we lose that magical future we imagined with that individual. And if this video gives you a moment of clarity and relief, please consider to type in the comments the word relief. I would love to count how many of us are already starting to break this abusive cycle. And it is true, there is no way we could stop all the waves, but certainly together we could learn how to surf them. See you in the next video. Ciao!